It's also on Losu 55,000. Morning, Moses. I just saw your video on entitled "Thoughts on the Nation of Islam," and I wanted to make a video response as soon as possible. While the thoughts are still fresh in my mind, I kind of jotted down a couple of points. So please forgive me if this video is a little disorganized because I didn't have time to kind of write out an essay. First of all, I wanted to say that I sympathized with pretty much the black condition, and it's not just here in America. The black condition pretty much all across the planet, because those people, the people of with darker skin color, the colored races, unfortunately, life is just tougher for them. Because there is just there's tacit racism pretty much across the planet, no matter what country you're in. And the terrible thing is that you even see racism against black people in the African communities as well, and then some of the other populations where the skin is very dark too. The Dravidian races, for example, in Southeast Asia, in Southeast Asia and in India, Southeast India, for example, Southern India. In response to the video, I wanted to actually differ slightly on the definition of racist. Your definition seemed to imply that one person necessarily had to feel superior to the people of other races that differed from his. I've seen many cases of reverse racism where people have felt inferior and thought that they were inferior to people of other races. Typically the white races, typically white Anglo-Saxon. So I guess my definition is just a little bit more broad. I just didn't really subscribe to the idea that racism necessarily meant that a person had to feel on the superior end. And it's interesting about reverse racism. Some people have accused me of this because if you talk to any of my friends, you know that I'm rather critical of some of the things that Chinese people do. And for anyone who's who's unclear about it, yes, I am Chinese. But before, more on that later. I mean, other things that I'm critical about. First, I will say this: I am a racialist. I'm not a racist, but I am a racialist. And if you look that up, a racialist is a person who believes that there are phenotypic differences between the different races. You can use certain phenotypes and characteristics to distinguish different people from, one individual, and I don't want to say pigeonhole him, but say, I'm pretty sure that such and such person is of African ancestry, or of Chinese ancestry, or from Northern European ancestry, or that sort of thing. That is with me. Chinese people generally tend to have black hair and brown eyes and kind of lighter skin, especially from your Southeast Asia. But as we know, racialism is probably all about statistics. So eventually you're going to run into a person from Africa who has the characteristics almost like a Chinese person. So it's only a very, very broad term. Racialists do not believe in a hierarchy of superiority of the different ethnic groups. So you can get that out of the way. I've been accused of reverse racism, but I would prefer to call it reverse culturalism. I have been rather critical of some of the Confucian precepts of Chinese culture, and for those of you who don't know, Confucianism is pretty much the backbone of Chinese society. It is not very philosophical, but it's extremely ethical, in the sense that its primary concern is ethics and protocol. It dictates to you what you can and cannot do, how you should act, and to whom you turn to for authority, and it's very top down. You never question authority. And in this sense, this is why I've been very critical of Confucianism and a lot of Chinese culture. Characteristics of Chinese culture, for the most part, is because it's very anti-intellectual, which goes back to Moses' point. I mean, let's make a comparison. If you look at the Jewish population, which is only 13 point something million worldwide, the Jewish population is extremely influential, despite the fact that they are such a small population of the planet. Ben Bernanke, Alan Greenspan. Look at all the people. Look at all the Nobel laureates that were Jews, in the sciences, in physics, everything. Not too many of them as Chinese, and it's not because Chinese people are dumb. No, not at all. It's because Chinese people, because of Confucianism, intellectualism is not encouraged. It has everything to do with culture. It has nothing to do with genes. Um, where was I think, if anything, that's probably why until recently. I mean, Chinese has 1.3 billion people. They're now becoming influential, but they weren't before. Culture holds people back. For the most part, everyone across the planet, whether you be black, brown, blue, white, unless you are born with a mental handicap, pretty much everyone is of equal intelligence. I don't buy at all that some races are smarter than the others. Other races have been given more opportunity than the others because of economic advantage, and also some races and some ethnic groups actually have the advantage due to culture. Um, the Jewish population, as I said again, encourages intellectualism, which is why there are so many intellectuals who are so influential that come from the Jewish community. In in the case of the black population, unfortunately, has a lot to do with economic disadvantage. So many of them came over here as slaves, and there isn't really the strong family cohesiveness which the Chinese have enjoyed is really not there in the black community, and it takes some time to get over that. My first exposure to the Nation of Islam in terms of listening to it was actually when I was studying Malcolm X. Um, some things I it is a kind of a pro-ethnic group, and it's good in that regard. But at the same time, I prefer to align myself with ideologies which are a little bit less spiritual. Um, it's let's see. Sorry, I told you it'd be kind of disorganized. Oh yeah. Let me just close with this basically. Um, Call me a cynic, but I prefer to call myself a realist. Racism, a realist. I prefer to say that it is realistic to expect that racism will always exist so long as human beings are around. We can work to diminish it, to minimize it as much as possible, but there will always be people who will hold on to ideologies, and it will be vogue and fashionable in those circles to hold on to racist and nationalistic ideals. Um, I think most people in the West and those who are educated have come. Most of the educated people have pretty much come to accept that there is no real big difference between a Chinese person and a black person and a person from South America and a person from the Bible Belt in America. You start them off all at the same time, and they're all pretty much the same person. What distinguishes them is culture and their living experiences, nature and nurture. Um, it's it's something actually that we kind of have to stop and think about. Um, the white supremacy group that Moses was talking about, or supremacy mentality that Moses was talking about, unfortunately will always be around. And there are the analogs in Chinese society as well. There are some people who believe that Chinese people walk on water. Well, that's a bad metaphor. I'm an atheist, but they think they have a rather superior than thou attitude about things, which I think is rather poisonous. Um, I expect that this video will generate a lot of responses, and I'm hoping that there will be a lot of them. Racism is a problem in our society that hopefully will diminish over time. We'll never get rid of it, but we can do our best basically to try and minimize its influence. And I hope to hear what you guys have to say.